there's a pigmentocracy, there are tropes of anti-blackness, especially with black females at the bottom, and there are different experiences. And obviously when an individual is speaking from an experience that she experiences or that he experiences that you cannot experience, the best thing that you need to do as an individual is to listen, is to shut up, sit down and listen. When somebody is speaking from a form of experience that they only experience that you cannot, because you are either not like that or you don't appear like that, what you need to do, instead of objecting, instead of, you know, thinking that maybe they're being too sensitive, which I find very irritating when people say that because it's very gaslighting, what you need to do is shut up, sit down and listen. Period. That's all you need to do. So in this particular episode, we dive deep into the anti-blackness that is set in stone in the Latin American community. And once again, Aisha just stands out. She just shines through. She sets her points out in a very clear and coherent manner and speaks of her own experiences, but she really just takes the episode with her two bare hands alongside Donovan, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful discussion.
You do not accidentally refer to someone as black. You check first. They might be the same complexion as you, they may be darker than you, but make sure that they don't identify as Dominican, because I was explaining to somebody, like maybe very early on dancing salsa, I said, this woman, I don't know her name, but I think she might be black. Oh no, she's not black, she's Dominican, and make sure you don't accidentally make that mistake. Oh, okay. As an African-American woman in the salsa world, there is definitely anti-blackness. And I can say it's anti-blackness because the salsa community is actually very diverse. There are whites, there are Asians, but if you are a black African-American, you will feel isolated. Oh, there are a lot of black women that will start dancing and they don't last because they can't take the feeling of you're never going to get that, you belong. You're never going to get that validation. I'm there and I'm going to be there. Everybody better get used to it, but a lot of people aren't built that way.
Hey guys, it's Murad Morali. Hope you guys are doing well today. Before we get into this video, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Click that button and definitely follow me on Instagram, Murad_Morali. Now, let's get straight into this particular episode. I'm very happy that they have done such an in-depth topic that really and truly we can speak about for years and years. And I feel like this is a topic that really hasn't been discussed as much. It hasn't really been predisposed anywhere online. So bringing a form of awareness is obviously a first point of, you know, change. Bringing a first form of acknowledgement, as Donovan says in this particular debate, is a first form of change, and I'm glad that they have taken this particular step. And what we do is we dive deep into this particular communities, you know, the Latin American communities, you know, black Latinos and so forth, and the anti-blackness that they experience, let alone the anti-blackness that black people experience when they come into like a Latin American community. And you know, we talk about colorism, and you know, really and truly, again, Aisha and Donovan, obviously two particular people who have been part of this cause for a while, again, really just grip they really just, when it comes to the particular, they stick to the point of topic. And this is what I find very interesting. They stick to the topic, they stick to the question, they don't go off on a tangent, they relay their points and then bring it back to how it relates to the topic, which obviously sets the tone for everybody else and keeps a narrow pathway.
Which is the way in which people who sometimes do identify as Afro-Latino, identify as black, but may have, you know, a 3C here or 2, you know, get to benefit from blackness in a different way as well, right? So this is a very, very, very complicated situation. And I think a part of the solution is that if you do plug into the framework of African, whether that be African, Caribbean, African American, Afro, whatever, all of the things that we can be, the common denominator is Africanness. If we can at least get to a place where people can say baseline, this is something that does not mean badness, this is something that does not mean that I can make a buck off of this and go home to my family and deal with these kinds of conversations without saying that these people's works, like my mother always said, without African Americans, we wouldn't be.
How you need to check what they are before you say that they're black, because some people may not even recognize that they're black. Some people may not even say that they are black. That's how deep anti-blackness goes. They always see themselves as mixed, as Latino. They would not see themselves as black. And I find that myself, I actually know quite a few friends. When I go over to the US, when I go over to LA and New York quite often, from the London stance, we will see them as black. But when I would say it to them, they say, don't call me black because I'm not black. I'm this, I'm that, I'm that. And obviously you have to respect them for what their moral values and so forth. But you just find it interesting when clearly their skin tone is black, but they refuse to acknowledge that they are. So, and if they came to London, people here would just see them as black, period. Like there's not enough terminology and names and so forth as they do have in America, because obviously they have a large influx of a Latin community as opposed to here in London. But I do, again, that thought process came to my mind when she said this. I did remember that. And she goes on to say how she talks about the salsa community and how she's been isolated, where men would not even dance with her because she's a black female, that they will just walk past her, they will not take pictures with her, people don't want to be her partners, she's often left alone. You know, speaking from first-hand experience, this is actually quite shocking. I didn't even knew this would be happening, especially in a salsa community. So again, this particular information not only is groundbreaking, but it's obviously first-hand experience. So it's definitely very interesting to hear. There's a pigmentocracy, and that particular word is the key word for me. There's a pigmentocracy. There are tropes of anti-blackness, especially with black females at the bottom, and there are different experiences. And obviously when an individual is speaking from an experience that she experiences or that he experiences that you cannot experience, the best thing that you need to do as an individual is to listen, is to shut up, sit down and listen. When somebody is speaking from a form of experience that they only experience that you cannot, because you are either not like that or you don't appear like that, what you need to do, instead of objecting, instead of, thinking that maybe they're being too sensitive, which I find very irritating when people say that because it's very gaslighting, what you need to do is shut up, sit down and listen. Period. That's all you need to do. Black men could get past in the particular society because of the masculinity privilege, the male privilege that they could have. And obviously a lot of black men found that quite irritating on the particular set, which obviously I found interesting, where they thought, why are you going to come for me? I have a light skin and this, and they got very defensive. And really and truly, that's not what was going on. Again, and I know it's very difficult for people to do so, but when somebody is speaking from an experience that they experience that you cannot, just listen. That's all you have to do. There's so much power in listening, beloved, you don't even know. So I feel like that kind of rift began to take place, and I'm interested to know if you guys watched that episode, what did you guys think of that particular rift? Then we have Donovan. Now Donovan really, again, just goes in and talks about how anti-blackness really is a perversive chronic disease, and white people aren't the early ones who obviously, have instructed it more so. A lot of people of color, whether they're Latin or Arab, are also as well very anti-black. And I touched a video on it, which I did a very good video a while ago, which nearly reached 100k views, where I spoke about the particular heavy amount of anti-blackness in the Arab community. And perhaps I'll do a part 2 video because I have a lot more to say. It is a disproportion in media when it comes to Latinas, because really and truly, when you think about it, exactly like you watch Power, there's obviously white Latinos. I didn't even know until you actually realize that Brazil has the largest population of black people outside of Africa. And that to me is shocking. I didn't even know that. So again, you learn so much. It's such an informative show, and we learn from each other. And you have these particular situations where there's a disproportionate media which only aids to the anti-blackness in the Latin American community. We need to take a pragmatic approach when it comes to acknowledgement. You need to take an educational experience. You need to examine yourself as an individual, how it's affecting you. I just find it interesting that some of the men simply do not get the politics of colorism.
Groups of women have these stereotypes associated with them. And you can say they're fetishes, but they're fetishes that have an advantage in the marriage market. So Asian women being seen as tending to their husbands, or white women being seen as delicate and feminine, or Hispanic women being seen as they cater to their men and they're sassy and they're sexy. All of these things have an advantage. They're terrible, they're stereotyping, you're painting with but they do have an advantage. They say this woman is of value, I can marry her. When you look at black women, particularly darker skinned women, we still are stuck with these tropes of, I can use her for sex and dispose her like a paper plate, but we still can't escape that hypersexualized trope. Like we're not. Excuse me.
We can do the labor.
We can do the labor, but we're not. But you can't take her.
Can't marry us.
Altar. So
But do the numbers back that up? Like I'm just curious.
What do you mean?
I mean, most black men marry black women. I'm just curious.
Because
I would agree with you.
Hold on.
One
of the statistics for that is, and this is not, I'm not trying to get into the whole black women are single thing, but the statistics for black men marrying black women. So these statistics were taken before men could before interracial marriages and dating was even illegal. So that's where the numbers started from. And then on top of that, they're also counting men who just date women who identify as black. They may be white passing, but they identify as black. So you're saying the numbers, statistics work any which way you want to go. But it's like, how do these women look? How are they going to look? How do they look in whiteness? How do they look in public? How do people view them? Can they have some type of elevated status dating these women? The reality is that darker skinned people tend to not be seen as ideal partners. That is the reality.
That's the reality, especially women. Jimmy?
Especially women.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, to defend black men, because I feel like y'all are coming from
I'm
black men.
coming from the same colorism has a role in the marriage market.
And Aisha began to say how dating a black woman and there are advantages for certain other races with fetishes. Although they're bad and they're terrible, it can be seen as an advantage. Whereas a black female is always seen as animalistic, hypersexualized, either seen as a prostitute or so forth, or either seen as poor. They are stuck with these particular tropes, and having a darker partner is always the worst thing. And it's definitely true. Like you see all this, and when she said that particular word, a lot of people didn't agree with it, and it triggered a lot of people, which I find interesting. But this particular trope, idea and this particular pigmentocracy, like this perfect verbiage to describe the extent and the depth and intricacy of anti-blackness, racism and colorism, I found was very clear, very defined, very coherent, and easy for us to understand, help build a bridge, and we can just sit there. This particular, when they discuss and use such vast, interesting terminology, it almost puts me into a meditative state where you're just listening to and you're able to inform and understand. And it's one of those shows where normally I normally end up skipping. Not grapevine, but I just end up skipping, like, just when you're watching a casual show and you're not that interested, but you want to know what happens at this certain point. But this particular show puts me in a meditative state where I just listen to what's going on and the interactions between people. Also to understand that beauty is tied in with status, which is obviously tied in with the white supremacy, which I feel like was definitely an interweaving relationship that a lot of them touched on, and I'm glad that they do. But once again, I feel like Aisha and Donovan kind of take the gripping in terms of the terminology and the understanding. They were able to understand very easily, especially Donovan, which I'm glad that he did. And Aisha is always coherent with how she speaks, and like, keep her on the show, please, because I feel like I love it when she speaks. Do let me know what you guys think about this particular topic, this particular show, and definitely this particular topic of discussion. Were you guys in favor of it, or were you guys not? What are your thoughts on it? What are your experiences? Comment down below, please. I'll definitely be interested to read all your comments. Hit up on my Instagram, Murad_Morali, and definitely follow me here, subscribe, click that button. I'll massively appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys soon.